Good afternoon. I'm Attorney Ben Crump, and along with Attorney Bob Hilliard from Texas, who I've had the pleasure of doing civil actions all across the United States for. Good afternoon. I'm Attorney Ben Crump, and along with Attorney Bob Hilliard from Texas, who I've had the pleasure of doing civil actions all across the United States for bereaved families and victims in Astro World, as well as against the National Basketball Association and other landmark cases, along with Attorney Gerald Christmas and Attorney Natalie Jackson. We have the honor of representing the father of Tyree Sampson, the 14-year-old child who was killed right behind us at the Icon Amusement Park. We are very honored to be joined by one of our great state leaders who hails here from Orlando, Florida. In fact, this is her district, and she's exhibited such great leadership throughout this entire tragedy. State Representative Geraldine Thompson. And it was very heartening when Mr. Sampson met Representative Thompson, how he thanked her for making sure they did not sweep this matter under the rug, because his son's life mattered. And we thank you again publicly, State Representative Thompson. Attorney Hilliard and I, along with Attorney Haggard, we filed a civil wrongful death lawsuit on behalf of the parents of Tyree Sampson. And we filed that lawsuit because we wanted it to be on the record that the reason Tyree Sampson, this 14-year-old child, was killed is because these corporations put profit over safety. And when you put profit over safety, it is foreseeable that harm can come to innocent people, innocent children, like Mr. Yarnell Sampson's only child, his only child. And that's why this is so very emotional for him this afternoon. Attorney Natalie Jackson and I were talking about this matter, and it was just logical to us, Attorney Christmas. If you're going to advertise for children to come to your amusement park, then you have an obligation to protect children. I mean, it's not a complicated dynamic. You have a duty and a responsibility to make sure the children who visit your amusement park that you solicited are safe. Now, my learned co-counsel, Attorney Hilliard, is going to talk to you in a few minutes about some of the technical aspects of the lawsuit, the multi-million-dollar lawsuit, because we believe our children are just as valuable as anybody else's children.
Yes, sir.
And Attorney Hilliard is going to talk about some of those technical things, Representative Thompson, that you and Commissioner Freed and the state investigator discovered that was part of the reason why this broken-hearted father is grieving his son's absence today. But you all, it doesn't take all these experts and all these studies and all these reviews to tell us that when your child comes to an amusement park, they are not supposed to fall out of the ride over 100 feet and crash to the earth to their death. That is not supposed to happen. And they can say what they want to say. There is no excuse. There is no way to justify this, Attorney Hilliard. I mean, you cut corners to save pennies, and it costs people their lives, and that is not acceptable. Mr. Sampson was very clear from the first day I met him and talked to him. He knew that his son was gone and that he didn't have a voice anymore. So it was up to him and their family to give the world the legacy for Tyree Sampson. And that's what this lawsuit is about. It is about the legacy of Tyree Sampson and making sure that we can get change, positive change, where no other family will have to suffer such a senseless, unnecessary loss, an unjustifiable loss. I mean, you look at that ride, over 400 feet. There is no way. You shouldn't take every safety precaution, every precaution. I mean, you got children, innocent children, trusting you, trusting the corporations, trusting the manufacturers to do everything to make sure that these children are safe. And these defendants named in this lawsuit, Slingshot, Icon Park, Funtime, and all the others, not only did you fail to follow the safety rules, but you failed our children. And that we can never ever forgive you for. Because you're going to hear from Mr. Sampson after Attorney Hilliard. And he's going to talk to you about how special this child was and why he had to come here. And how there's a hole in his heart about this wonderful little boy being taken from this earth far too soon. And so we filed this lawsuit because we not only want to get justice and accountability for Tyree Sampson's family, but we want change. We want change here in Orlando, all the way to the State House, that will impact not just the ground zero for amusement parks here in Orlando, but will impact the world, where we don't want to see this happen anywhere. Anywhere where you have to bury your 14-year-old child after seeing the most horrific video that you will ever see. As I said before, other than the horrific torture video of George Floyd, it is one of the most horrific videos ever captured on cell phone video. And that's why we're going to continue to fight, because Tyree did not deserve to be killed that way. At this time, Attorney Bob Hilliard, a great trial lawyer in Texas and one of the best in America, is going to address you. And then I will introduce you to State Representative Thompson to tell you about some proposed legislation that her and leaders of the state caucus are putting forward in Tyree Sampson's name. And then I will introduce you to his father. Attorney Hilliard.
Thank you, Ben. Good afternoon. My name is Bob Hilliard, and we've come today with Yarnell to honor Tyree's memory. And as Ben said, the lawsuit was filed yesterday, I have a few remarks. As a parent, Yarnell Sampson allowed his son Tyree to come to Florida on spring break and enjoy these rides, including the ride that you can't even see the top of behind me unless you crane your neck. Why did he do it? Like thousands of parents, he put his trust and his faith and quite literally Tyree's life in the hands of those who build and operate these rides. Yarnell trusted that before the first child got on the first ride for the first time on this FreeFall, that everyone involved in this ride, from the designer to the manufacturer, to the owner, to the property leasing company, to the operator, that they all have done everything that they were supposed to do from a safety standpoint, to keep Tyree safe, to keep all the kids who pay money to ride this ride safe. We all understand that rides like FreeFall are supposed to scare our kids, but it's a false fear. They build these rides so our kids would get the rush while being safe. We would never let our kids on a ride that actually put their lives in danger. The scarier the ride, the bigger the draw. The bigger the draw, the more money they make, which is fine. But in return, we have a high expectation that the most precious thing we have, our children, which we're letting ride these rides, will get off that ride, will go home with us that night. No one would allow their child to actually ride a life-threatening, dangerous ride. There's broken trust around the country when you watch this video. The mid-fall moments of Tyree stopped all of us. Every single one of us. Every parent that has seen it. Every one of the millions of parents who have viewed the accident video thought three things and thought them immediately. Every one of you who are parents thought them too. First, it took our collective breaths away. We couldn't believe what we saw. Second, but for the grace of God, that was my daughter or my son. Everyone thought that as well, because it could very well have been. And finally, regardless of the reason, every parent says, my child is never getting on a ride like that, ever. No amount of promises from these defendants can mend the trust that was broken and that this man feels. You know, they say that the loss of a child is like a water spigot being turned on full and then the handle being broke off, and instead of water, it's pain that flows out forever. And that's true. That's true for this man, who changed his life when this boy was born in order to be part of his life, and who was proud of the man this boy was becoming, and this boy was proud of his dad. We hope that the golden age of rides that simulate danger and attract our children come to an end. The only hope now for Yarnell, for Tyree's mom, is that the myth that these rides are safe and they just appear to be dangerous died that night with poor Tyree when he hit that concrete. That everyone now sees that this ride, the ride behind you of that Ferris wheel, broke in two with people on top, with children on top. We now learn that their safety measures don't exist that we trusted in. So the lawsuit has been filed. The litigation will proceed, and during the trial of this case, if this ride is still up, we're going to ask the judge to allow the jury to come and do a jury view, because you just do not appreciate until you stand here and look up at how high that is. And even now, anyone that looks up there just can't believe it. People that walk by shake their heads at how high that is. You would think that NASA's best engineers would have designed this if they're strapping our children in it and dropping them at 4 Gs, which is a G more than the shuttle astronauts experience. So Yarnell is heartbroken, and on his behalf, we funnel that heartbreak into righteous indignation and anger at what happened. And we're going to represent him and his interests, and we're going to make sure that every single defendant that caused this will be brought to justice. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you so much, Attorney Hilliard. And you may have more questions about the lawsuit, and we will answer those. But first, we want to hear from one of our sheroes, one of my personal mentors. Her and her husband, Janice Thompson, has mentored so many young people like me and Attorney Jackson. Thank you for continuing to exhibit great leadership. State Representative Geraldine Thompson.
Good afternoon. I am here because it is important to honor Tyree's memory, to honor the promise that was ahead of him by making sure that no other child comes to Central Florida for spring break and returns home in a coffin. And the responsibility for overseeing rides like this rests with the state of Florida and is assigned to the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services that inspected this ride in December, gave a permit so that the ride could open in January, and had planned another inspection for June. In the interim, someone who disregarded the manufacturer's guidelines altered and adjusted the harness that came across the body that was supposed to keep Tyree and other young people safe. And we want to know how that happened. I'm looking at the law to require more frequent inspections, more than just every 6 months. I'm looking at the law to focus on training. You shouldn't have people who are hired yesterday operate these rides today. So training is going to be very important. I'm looking at the law to make sure that anytime there's any adjustment on an amusement ride, that the state is notified, and that then leads to another inspection. We require that today of rides that are temporary. And if those rides are disassembled and reassembled someplace else, it requires an inspection. And there's no reason why that should not be the case with this permanent ride. You know, there's an African proverb that asks the question, how are the children? And in Africa, they measure the health of their community, of their society, by the health of the children. And the response that they're looking for is all the children are well. In this case, Tyree was not well. Tyree is not here today because of some things that happened. We want to get all of the questions answered, as many as we can, and then we're going to write and introduce the Tyree Sampson bill in the Florida legislature. To honor this young man so that his life will have meaning going forward, for the protection, for the wealth, for the health, for the safety of other young people. So we appreciate you being here today. The pain that you see in Mr. Sampson's eyes, that you will hear in his voice, should not be what parents experience when they entrust the lives of their children in terms of these kinds of rides. And so we want to send that message forward and want to have you help amplify the fact that there will be the Tyree Sampson bill to make sure that all the children are well.
Thank you so much, Senator Geraldine Thompson, for your leadership and the proposed legislation in Tyree Sampson's name. This is gut-wrenching. Very, very, very emotional. Very raw. But Tyree Sampson's father, Yarnell Sampson, is now going to address you and talk to you about his son, his feelings, and the fight for Tyree's legacy. Attorney Hilliard and Christmas and Thompson, Jackson, all of us, you know, this is our job, this is what we do. He didn't sign up for this. So He's going to do the best he can in trying to talk about something no parent ever wants to have to talk about. But he understands it's about accountability and justice and legacy for his child. Tyree Sampson's father, Mr. Yarnell Sampson.
How everybody doing today? Thank y'all for coming out. Thank you, Senator, for passing the bill. Thank you, Mr. Crawford, representing me, Mr. Higgins, Mr. G. Also, Wendy Wooten. I want to thank my son's mother, Nakia died, for helping me raise our child together, Tyree Sampson. My name is Yarnell Sampson. I am Tyree Sampson's father. The reason I'm here is to get some understanding and get a few answers. Also, to pay my respect for my son. It's the first time I've been here. Everybody know the funeral was last week. It's the first time I seen my son physically. I'm gonna just say how I found out was through the internet. It went viral at that point. We're getting off work and Miss Wendy Wooten asked me could I have a seat and she wanted to show me something. And I seen the video. I was kind of sickened when I first seen it, but I didn't even know it was my child. When I found out it was my child, it took the breath out of me. It took some life out of me as well. It just made me numb and helpless because I wasn't there to protect my son. But I'm here now to talk up for my son because I'm speaking up for the voiceless. If I don't speak up for this young man, this thing will just be swept under the rug and it'll be another young man going through the same situation and we have the same press conference 5 years down the road. This should be the last press conference talking about my son unless we try to help make change. Now, if you try to help make change, let's push this needle towards the direction it needs to go. For each and every one of us will have to have this platform up here to talk about me burying my son. In the dictionary, they don't have nothing to describe a father or parent or mother burying their child. There's no word to describe that. So what I'm feeling right now is sickening. It's days I can't get out the bed, make myself eat, make myself drink. Imagine you lose an honor roll student, 14-year-old child that was a straight A student, went to school, did everything you told him to do and had no problems doing it. What would you do in this situation, you lose your child? There's two ways I could go. I could go to depression and hide and let this just fall away, or I can stand up and do the right thing. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna speak up for my son because he was a warrior, he was a young man, he was intelligent, intellectual, and forget the part about him being a 5-star athlete, left tackle, prime position. We ain't gonna talk about that part. Let's talk about the 4.0 intellectual that he could have been. He could have been a doctor, lawyer, scholar. An astronaut. The reason why I say astronaut is not a lot of black astronauts. So, well, we already had a black president. But the point I'm trying to say is sky's the limit if you got potentials.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of potentials. If you ask anybody to know Tyree, he'd touch you. He'd touch your life some kind of way. I'm quite sure when he was here, the little time he was here, he was touching people around him. Because that's how his energy was. He had good synergy. He was raised by 2 good parents that really loved their child. They believed in the morals and the values of doing right by others, and right will be followed by you. As far as you do good by others, God gonna lead you toward the right direction you need to go for the right prospect to find favor. Favor is blessings. That's what favor is, blessings. Every day you wake up in the morning, it's a blessing. So I just appreciate y'all taking the time out. But I'm gonna say one thing. I appreciate everybody that came out here and showed my son support. It took me a month later to get here. Fortunately, it takes a little time to get strength to do something like this. This is not an easy process. It's not an easy thing to do. Speaking to strangers, all these cameras, this is not a natural thing. But I appreciate y'all showing up to help me spread the message. The narrative is Tyree, justice for Tyree.
Justice for Tyree.
That's the narrative. There's no money involved gonna change this situation. We can talk about all this, we can talk about all that. If the change don't happen with this young lady with the bill, then this same situation gonna happen down the road. It might not be in Orlando, it'll be in California. Like, it's not. It's senseless that a child got to lose their life trying to have fun. Plain and simple. I just want to thank my son's mother for being strong. She had a press conference as well. We're going to do this together as a family. We're going to get through this, and we both want change for our child.
Amen.
And also, we want this company to take accountability for their actions. You know, it should be profit over safety.
Exactly.
It should be safety over profit.
Exactly.
To be honest with you, everybody know why I'm here. I'm here to mourn, to get my peace, and me to get our official prayer for my son where he officially died. I'm not here for the publicity. This is not going to make my life better. Actually, it's made my life worse. I appreciate Mr. Crump for being a real man. He's been very supportive, not only as a lawyer, just as a man, period. I appreciate that. We love you. Y'all see, this is my support system. It's small, because when you're going through trauma, it's very hard to describe it, and it's hard to explain it. So I'm in my moments right now. And I don't know, every second I'm trying to make it better by just trying to live. Just give myself breath, the energy, and a chance to live, because I have to be here for my son, because I'm my son protector and I'm my son provider. And it's my job to be his voice, because he can't speak no longer. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you. We'll take some of your. Okay, we'll try to take some of your questions. This obviously is very emotional for Mr. Sampson.
Ben, I have a question for you. Yesterday, the attorneys for this side released a statement basically saying that they followed all protocols, procedures, safety measures provided by the manufacturer of the ride, and that they were all followed. What is your reaction to that?
And I'm going to have Attorney Hilliard also answer that question. But to me, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that a child that you advertised and solicited to get on your ride is supposed to fall out of the seat to his death. They can say anything they want to say, but there is no excuse. Is the manufacturer partly responsible? We believe so. Absolutely. Does that absolve the operator's culpability? We think not. We think that, as Attorney Hilliard said, this was a cascade of gross negligence on multiple parties' part. That's why we have multiple defendants.
I'll address that question directly. That's a false statement. You know, we've been collecting evidence, interviewing witnesses, and we have more evidence and witnesses than have been disclosed yet, but they will be disclosed inside this litigation. And I promise you that when those witnesses come forward, including the other two riders of this exact seat immediately before Yarnell, and what they told the operators when they got off, I would like to take that statement that you just read and present it to the corporate representative of the company that gave it to you after they know that we have evidence that that is false. And we're going to present it in court. We're going to let them see it, and ultimately we'll let a jury decide if that's going to get those defendants off the hook.
You're saying this was someone else.
I'm saying that the guy it almost was will be a witness. And the bruises he had on his arm when he was trying to save his own life, he's got a story to tell.
And in your investigation so far, have you discovered why it was that the two seats when you suggested why they allowed for the larger planes?
So we have, based on our experts' views, some strong beliefs, but until we are allowed to take the sworn depositions of those who actually did it and ask them to show us the work order, to see the supervisor who signed that work order, to ask him under whose authority did you do that, and then present it to the manufacturer and get them to comment on them doing that. We can't say for sure, but I can tell you that that answer is knowable, and it will be found out through sworn depositions of those who are responsible for adjusting the seat. For example, we don't know how far up the approval went for the adjustment of the seat. I promise you it wasn't the minimum wage teenage operator that was just there to earn a few bucks during spring break. You know, it probably wasn't his manager or supervisor. You know, it was someone that was in a position of authority that decided there's enough larger customers to where they could make more money if they allowed them a special seat without any safety protocols.
Realistically, what is the timeline?
Let me say one thing to that. I'll say one thing to that. You know, they know who their employees are at these amusement park rides. Why did the manufacturer even make it possible for children to adjust rides? I mean, you have to ask yourself those questions because it was foreseeable if you allowed that a young person will make an irrational decision. Or is that what you wanted them to do? Because it still goes back to profit. Whoever comes, if they gonna pay, we gonna let them ride. We don't care about whether they're gonna be able to come down safely or not. All we care about is the profit. And that is what Mr. Sampson was saying. We can't allow profit over safety because you end up with him going to a graveyard crying about his 14-year-old son who was killed in the most horrible way you can imagine. And it goes to what Representative Thompson is trying to do with these bills. If anybody moves anything, then you gotta give notice to the state of Florida, the regulators. That's why we have the safety rules, because if you don't follow the safety rules, people die.
You know, the other glaring issue, an elephant in the room that has already been disclosed, is the written inquiry to the manufacturer asking if they could put a seatbelt on each one of these seats. And I don't think any expert is going to disagree on either side that a seatbelt as a secondary safety measure could have also saved Tyree's life. All that the manufacturer did was write a letter back saying seatbelts are not necessary on this ride. They didn't explain themselves, but an inquiry was made, and through this litigation we're going to ask, why did you make that inquiry? What information did you have that made you concerned that maybe the harness wasn't enough to hold people in? So that evidence has already been out in the press. People have seen it, and we'll discover through depositions from the Austrian manufacturer what were they thinking when they said, no, don't put a seatbelt in.
Do you know when the ride was, when the seat increase was adjusted?
So the answer is not a specific date yet, but again, until they are required to give us the information, no.
So the reason I asked is because I noticed that one of the possible defendants missing from the lawsuit were state regulators who also had a hand in inspecting and permitting the ride. Should you find that the seat was adjusted prior to their inspection, would they be able to be held accountable as well?
Well, we plan on holding any and everybody accountable who has something to do with this child's tragic death. So what Attorney Bob Hilliard, Attorney Mike Haggard, Attorney Michael Richardson, and Attorney Gerald Christmas, we're dotting every I and crossing every T, because that is the least we can do for Tyree Sampson. That's the very least we can do, is get the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
But in regard to what you asked, the what you're saying is, well, they created a dangerous design modification, and the state regulator missed it. That may be true, but the state regulator didn't create it. And you're right; it's their duty to inspect and to cite and to stop. But it existed whether they were there and saw it or not. And the evidence will determine when they were there and what they did see. There'll be reports that answers that question. But the culpability lies with those who ultimately decided not to put a seatbelt in, to change the design on site, to not listen to the other two riders in that exact chair that night.
And that's what's astonishing. I mean, this was so preventable. You're going to hear this evidence that Bob is speaking of about the people who were in the chair before Tyree. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sampson, are you up for asking
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
a question or two?
Yes, ma'am.
Your first time out here, first of all, what's it like coming out here, seeing the outcome of support for your son, number one, and number two, to see this on television is one thing, but to see the size of this rioting incident to your son's life, it's
I'm gonna be honest with you. I couldn't even watch the tape the first time I seen it. If it could not have been my son, it could have been somebody else's child. It was still just that. But to find out it was my son and actually see it up close, it just, I don't know how you want to get on something like this. Like, I like to get on rides. I used to be a thrill seeker, but I've never seen nothing like this in my life. Like, this is some scary stuff. You're adjusting and playing with seats and all that kind of stuff. If they doing irresponsible things like this, adjusting seats and doing that, then what else they doing other places? Like, the ride got to come down. Plain and simple. Should that kid get on that ride no more ever again? You have to worry about the thought even falling again. The thought in your mind to think about. Every one of y'all got kids out here? Anybody got kids? When you see your kids every time you go home, what you do? You tell them you love them, don't you? You hug them, you tell them they're beautiful, whatever you need to do to motivate them. That's the same thing with my son. I can't tell him that no more. I can't hear him coming in telling some jokes and Dad, I'm home going to the refrigerator and raiding the refrigerator. My son was 6'5", over 340. Was a growing young man. So I don't have that chance no more to tell him I love him. So if I can stop this, right, well, not necessarily me, if we can stop this and prevent this to happen to another child by taking these rides down nationwide, or till they get their stuff together to do it right, then I'm all for it. That's what I'm here for.
How do you feel about seeing the memorial and all of the support? You know, this happened a while ago, and we've been covering it throughout.
I'm gonna be honest with you.
Every single day, people come out here and they play stuff.
I'm blessed because I knew my son was that great. You know, if you spend 5 minutes with him, you will come impressed. You got to think about it. This year 2022, right? How many young men you know these days say yes sir, yes ma'am? This honestly greet you, don't even know you say yes sir, yes ma'am. That's the kind of young man he was. He was a gentle giant. You know, you can go from school teacher interviews, always to coaches, to friends, to teammates, and anywhere you come across them, they're gonna say the same thing. Tyree was an awesome young man. They're gonna tell that story over and over again because it was the truth. And to appreciate me coming out here and seeing all the support is actually, this is probably what keeps me not breaking down.
Mr. Sampson, can you talk about why you decided not to settle out of court or something like that?
I'm sorry?
Can you talk about why you made the decision to not settle out of court and to go for the
I'll be honest with you, I never had a choice to settle out no court. To be honest with you. I have not gained nothing financial from this situation at all. I'll have no GoFunds, I'll have none of that stuff set up. So I work myself off to pay for where I'm at.
There's been a lot of discussion as to whether or not to tear the ride down. Is that a goal that you guys are hoping for?
Well, I'm not the thrill seeker type person, but me personally, I would like to tear the ride down or take it down. But that's not my decision. I don't make these laws and I don't regulate them. But if we can change some things and make it safer for this never happen again, I'm cool with that. But preferably, I'll let the ride come down. Because that's a reminder every time somebody go up down that thing on a ride, that I'm looking at my son, visualizing that, falling from that. So I don't know. You tell me what you want.
Mr. Sampson, could you go and talk about what was the last conversation with your son? Is he excited to come to the brand?
To be honest with you, my son normally every spring break spend time with me. But he was excited to come up here because it's the capital of thrill rides. It's the what you call musical capital of the world. So if I was a 14-year-old kid, I'd be excited to come here too. Look around, it's a beautiful place. I mean, unfortunately, I can't remember Disney World when I was a kid, you know, but I don't want to be here talking to y'all about my son falling off a ride and 480 feet in the air. This should be the conversation. We should be talking about how great can he be in the future. What can he do to help his neighborhood? What can he do to be a better citizen? Could have been an all-pro. I mean, there's a lot of good questions I want my answers. I ain't gonna get them. Because guess what? He's not coming home no time soon.
Mr. Sampson, what do you hope, to go back to the previous question, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, what do you hope to accomplish by going through this process?
I'm already accomplishing that. She changed the bill. This story, this narrative, this story right here has never been about money.
Right.
This story right here is about change. It's about no other child should have to die off an amusement park ride. No other parent should have to bury their child before they get a chance to bury themselves. That ain't supposed to happen in law or physics. That ain't supposed to happen. There's no word to describe it in the dictionary. You let me know. There's none. So, in the end of the day, at the end of the day, his legacy gonna live on. As long as I got breath in my body to speak up for him, that's what I'm gonna do. Because I'm his father and I'm his protector. That was my son. They got a lot of excuses about this ride. They didn't tell you the facts and the truth. What about the truth?
We want to know.
A lot of speculations, a lot of stuff. Let's get to the truth. That's why I'm here, for the truth.
You mentioned that you'd seen this video before you knew it was your son. How many hours later were the documents?
Be honest with you, I think this happened about 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock around the evening time. I didn't find out until like 4:30 in the morning after I got off work. Wendy Wooten had explained it to me. She didn't want, I guess she knew about it, and she didn't want told me about the video. That's the first time on my recollection of hearing about it.
So, just to clarify, I'm sorry. When you saw the video, the first time you saw the video, you had been told that it was Tyree?
Yes. Well, first she asked me, could I sit down? I walked, just good, you get off work, you're happy, you get off work, you walk in the door like a typical day, you come on in and you see your significant other sitting there crying. And you don't know why she crying. She crying, it's a different cry of you bump your toe and ooh, that pain, raw emotion cry. Like you lost somebody who's very important to you. You know, and she felt the same way like I felt. So when she told me, she had me sit down and she said, have you seen this video? I said, no, what video are you talking about? And when she showed me, I looked at the video, I'm like, ooh, I turned my head instantly. Because I didn't just want to look at it. She was like, you really don't know? I'm like, I know. She's like, that's Tyree. I'm like, stop, man, stop kidding. Instantly, I threw up. I'll be honest with you. I threw up. It took the breath out of me. It just, imagine you hearing something like that, or you seeing something like that for the first time on a video, viral video. That everybody in the country know, everybody in the world know but you.
How does that make you feel about the fact that that video is still available online?
I mean, that's the world we live in social media. We'll see a neighbor fall down and we walk right past him and we record it. Say to pick your neighbor up. Say be okay. Ask him if he okay. We lost the compassion for life.
Are there any other questions?
Just a clarifying question about the suit. Is it two separate lawsuits or it's one, but you guys represented by?
It's one lawsuit. They're co-representatives of the estate, equally representing the estate of Tyree as a result of his damages and their damages for the loss of his son. And copies are available.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I wanted to ask earlier, what's a reasonable timeline for when answers are really going to be found on this case?
All of the Florida defendants will or have been served in the next few days, and they have 20 days to answer the lawsuit. We filed the lawsuit with discovery, which means they also have to give us documents and answer questions. Once that comes in, we are also in the process of serving the out-of-country defendants, the manufacturer from Austria and the seat manufacturer from Germany. You have to go through a process under rules under the Hague Convention, so it takes longer. We are hopeful that their lawyers will accept service on their behalf instead of making us do that. Discovery will be in our hands in 60 to 90 days. Then depositions will start. One fight that we expect we're going to have and that we're going to be very strong about on Yarnell's behalf and on the press's behalf is they want confidentiality agreements on all the documents. They want the mistakes to stay secret. They do not want you guys, the world, to see what they have to show us. And there's some pretty strict rules on confidentiality. We have to finish. State Representative Thompson has gotten some heat issues over there. We want to support her. I'll be around over there. Sorry. Thank you.
I appreciate y'all for coming out. I thank y'all. Each and every one of y'all got kids. Tell your kids when you go home you love them. Hug them and tell them they're beautiful. Because you can't take this life for granted. You only got one chance at it. So that's my message to y'all. I appreciate y'all. All your prayers and concerns. Y'all have a good night.